Welcome to Messages from the Universe with Lori Wondra. Lori is an internationally renowned psychic medium, author, and shamanic practitioner, sharing insights from angels, guides, wisdom keepers, and teachers of the universe that help you navigate life's mysteries and transformations.
Hello, I am Lori Wondra, and thank you for listening. Today, I want to talk about the mission of Artemis 2. This was not a topic on my radar. In fact, this was not the podcast I was set to roll out on this Monday, but I cannot not talk about this event. There's just moments in human history that become more than events. And I'll share a personal story. I do sound healing, and I did a public sound healing event on Friday evening, and that starts at 7 p.m. Central. And when I set those up, I do them on new moon, full moon, astrological events, other energy events. Spirit really tells me when to do these events. And I scheduled this one, and I thought it was odd because it wasn't a new moon, it wasn't a full moon, but I scheduled it. And lo and behold, it was the day that Artemis was coming back to Earth. And the timing is crazy because I started my event at 7 p.m. and Artemis landed at 7:07 p.m. Now, I'm in central United States and Artemis landed on the West Coast, but still the energy has been intense and I've been feeling it as the excitement as we reach out and we understand more of the energy of space. So to me, this is more than just an event. Where we are now, as these events can become mirrors, they reflect not only what we're capable of, but who we are at the time we reach beyond ourselves. So the last time humanity walked on the moon was in 1972, and that was during the Apollo 17 mission. And it was a moment of extraordinary achievement. It was the accumulation of years of innovation, risk, and determination. And yet it was also a moment shaped by division, competition, and a world that was still trying to understand itself. And now, more than 5 decades later, humanity prepares to return through the Artemis program with that planned landing on April 10th. Now, at first glance, this may seem like a continuation of a same story, a return to a place we've already been. But when you look deeper, something profound emerges. This is not the same humanity that left the moon in 1972. And this is not the same reason for going back. Now, as my guides push me to talk about this on my Messages from the Universe, I ask why. But we're in a very different place, and this is part of our evolution. And to understand our evolution, sometimes it's really important to look back on where we were and where we've come from, what things have changed, and what things really have not changed at all. So to understand what is changing now, we first look back to understand what was. So that Apollo 17 mission marked the final chapter of the Apollo program. It was in many ways the peak of human ambition at that time, a moment where science, engineering, and sheer will converged to achieve what once seemed totally impossible. What was happening in the world at that time? Well, the global environment of 1972 was anything but peaceful. The Cold War defined the geopolitical landscape, with the United States and the Soviet Union locked in a prolonged and deeply ideological conflict. Space was not just a frontier, it was a battlefield of perception. Each mission, each launch, each success was a signal to the world. We are more powerful, we are more capable, we are more advanced. But at the same time, the Vietnam War was going on, casting a shadow over the United States and fueling widespread protests, unrest, and division. Citizens questioned leadership, purpose, and the cost of both war and exploration. And yet, within this tension, something quietly transformative was also emerging. Environmental awareness was beginning to take root. The now iconic blue marble that we see as planet Earth, that photograph that was captured during the Apollo 17 offered humanity its first fully illuminated view of Earth from space. And for the first time, people could see the planet, not as divided land masses, but as a single fragile living system suspended in darkness. Technology by today's standards was mechanical, it was analog, and only beginning to transition into any sort of digital form. And yet, with this comparatively limited technology, humanity achieved something extraordinary. At that time, the intention and the driving force behind the Apollo mission was very clear. The United States was pushing to, we can get there first. It was about national pride. It was about geopolitical influence. It was about proving capability. And scientific curiosity was certainly present, but it existed within a competitive framework. Discovery was important, but it was also looked upon as a time of victory. And the collective mindset, well, that mindset at the time was largely external. Humanity was focused on conquering space, on reaching beyond Earth as a demonstration of power and potential, and there was a strong sense of separation, nation against nation, ideology against ideology, and us versus them. Exploration was driven by power, was driven by prestige and proof, and yet, even within that framework, something else was seeded, something else was started. The image of Earth from space planted a question that would take decades to unfold. If we are all on this same planet, what does it mean for how we live together? We aren't separate. We aren't divided. We have to learn to work in unity. So bring us to today, 2026, in the era of Artemis. Fast forward to this time period, both technologically and geopolitically has transformed, though not entirely in the ways we might have hoped. The Artemis program is not simply a return mission. It is a redefinition of what it means to explore space. What's happening in the world? Today's world is complex, but it's also interconnected and in many ways still deeply divided. We face global challenges such as climate change, shifting economies, and the rapid rise of technologies like artificial intelligence and biotechnology. These challenges are shared across borders, across countries, across the world, requiring cooperation at a level humanity is still learning to sustain. And once again, just as in 1972, we're not returning to the moon during a time of peace. In 2026, global tensions have escalated into active conflict involving Iran, the United States, and regional allies. Military actions, economic disruptions, and uncertainty ripple across the globe. Energy systems are strained. Alliances are tested. The emotional tone of the planet reflects anxiety, division, and instability. This mirrors the era of Apollo more closely than many realize. Humanity is once again reaching for the moon while still and also navigating conflict on Earth. And yet within this tension, something new is emerging. There's growing movement toward collaboration. Organizations like NASA are working alongside international partners such as ESA and JAXA, as well as private companies. And while competition still exists, it no longer is the sole driving force. Technology has accelerated at an unprecedented pace. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and advanced materials science are reshaping what is possible. And once again, there is renewed global interest in space, not just from governments, but from private enterprises and emerging spacefaring nations, and from healers and metaphysical shaman all over the globe. We're also watching what is happening with energy, what is happening with space, with our Mother Earth and Grandmother Moon. The intention of Artemis, or the purpose of Artemis, is fundamentally different than Apollo. This is not about a single visit. It is about sustainable presence. The goals include establishing long-term operations on the moon. Now, some might think that's wrong or right, but this mission is about preparing for future missions to not just the moon, but to Mars, advancing scientific understanding, creating systems that allow humans to live and work beyond Earth. There's also a powerful shift towards inclusion. Artemis aims to land the first woman and the first person of color on the moon, expanding who gets to represent humanity in space. The collective mindset has evolved, but it's not uniformly. Humanity is now holding two realities at once. One still operates in division and conflict and power struggle, and that's very visible in global tensions and war. And the other is emerging through collaboration and sustainability and shared exploration. And we as humans are beginning to ask not just what is out there, but also what is our place within it? Who are we? Who are we becoming? And some might say exploration is now being driven by survival, expansion, and stewardship. But I would add to that, it's not just survival, it's about thriving. It's about understanding, and certainly it is about exploring. Perhaps most importantly, by a deeper curiosity about existence itself. And as Spirit has walked me through this path, I can't help but look at key similarities between 1972 and 2026, those threshold moments. Both 1972 and 2026 represent pivotal transitions. 1972 marked the end of the Apollo era, the closing of one chapter, but 2026 marks the beginning of a new one, a sustained return to the moon. Each moment exists at the edge of what was known, but more importantly, it opens the doors to what comes next. I can't help but marvel at the technology leaps that humanity has made. In both eras, humanity was operating at the edge of its technology capabilities. Apollo represented the peak of mid-20th century engineering, but Artemis represents the integration of 21st century innovation. Both required extraordinary risk, ingenuity, and collaboration. Also, Earth awareness. Apollo gave us our first full view of Earth, and Artemis deepens our understanding of its fragility. In both cases, looking outward has helped us see inward. Artemis has also given us clearer views of the moon and its surface, its mapping. And perhaps the most strikingly similarity is that humanity reaches for the moon during times of conflict. In 1972, the Vietnam War and the Cold War tensions, and now in 2026, conflict involving Iran and broader geopolitical instability. This pattern raises a deeper question. Do we reach outward because we're divided or because we're searching for unity? The key differences also come clear when we look at 1972 was about competition. Competition in 1972 was defined by the rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. In 2026, it's more about collaboration. It's defined by partnerships, multiple nations, and public and private collaboration. Even within a world still experiencing conflict, space exploration is becoming a space of cooperation. Apollo asked, can we do it? And Artemis asks, how do we live beyond Earth? This is not just a technical question. It's also a philosophical one because it involves humanity, not just the material presence of Earth and what we can take from her, but how do we give and receive, and how do we become stewards of Earth? The Apollo era was rooted in external conquest. The Artemis era reflects integration, Earth and space, science and sustainability, technology and human evolution. And at the same time, the persistence of conflict around us reminds us that the shift is still in progress. Also, with this mission, Apollo astronauts were primary military trained men. Artemis expands representation to reflect a much more diverse view of humanity. This shift matters, not just symbolically, but energetically. It changes the story of who we are becoming, who we want to be. And the deeper reflection, when we step back, there's a larger pattern that begins to emerge. And this is what's exciting to me in the energy world and the messages and what we learn from what's happening in the world. 1972 showed us that we are capable of leaving Earth. It proved that humanity could reach beyond its home planet. But it did not yet answer why. But now in 2026, we're being asked a different question. Who are we becoming as we expand beyond it? And perhaps even more importantly, can we as humans evolve fast enough to match the power of what we are creating? If we were to describe these eras in energetic terms, the Apollo era aligns with foundational energy centers. And I look at them as foundational as our root chakra, which is survival, and the solar plexus, which is about our identity, our power, our capabilities. It was also about proving existence and establishing dominance. Well, the Artemis era reflects higher integration. It reflects heart, connection, and collaboration. It reflects the crown chakra, which is awareness and expansion. It's about understanding interconnection and purpose. And yet, we have this presence of conflict that reminds us that humanity is not leaving the lower energies behind. It's learning to integrate them. The last humans left the moon in 1972 during a time of division, war, and competition. We return now in 2026 during a time that in many ways echoes that same tension. Global conflict, political instability, and uncertainty about the future. And yet, there is something different. We are also experiencing global collaboration, technology awakening, and a deeper questioning of humanity's role. This is not just a continuation of the same journey. It's a return with a different level of awareness, a different level of expectation, a different level of curiosity. We are no longer a humanity moving in one direction. We need to be moving in many directions. We are a humanity learning to hold complexity, to hold that space for conflict and cooperation, for fear and curiosity, for division and unity. The duality doesn't have to split us apart. It can be a way to bring us together. The moon hasn't changed, but we have. And perhaps that is the most important part of this story, because the true mission is not just about reaching new worlds. It's not about conquering it or controlling it or demonstrating who has more power. It's about becoming a humanity that is ready to live within, to share our knowledge, to coexist, to find places of betterment for all. So what if this return to the moon is not about distance, but what if it's about depth? What if it's not about proving we can go, but about understanding why we do? And it's not about leaving Earth behind, but finally learning how to honor her, even as we expand beyond her. Because in the end, the journey to the moon may be the most visible part of the story. Honestly, I feel the real journey is the one that is happening within us and how we are responding to those things around us, how we are contributing to collaboration, to the advancement of humanity. How are we honoring and loving our neighbor. I'm Lori Wondra of Your Life Core. I want to thank you for listening. As I said, this was not on my radar to talk about today, but Spirit wants us to understand how connected that we are, and that even though there are events happening in the world and there are things we are not liking right now, we are together on this blue marble, floating in this massive expanse of the universe. Thank you for listening. Be blessed.
Thank you for listening to Messages from the Universe. For information about Lori Wondra's current events or to schedule a private session, visit her website, yourlifecore.com. You can also subscribe to her monthly newsletter. Lori also shares inspirational and informational messages on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening.